Okay, problem 6, they give you two functions, and let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just look at these two functions for a moment. So the first function is f of x equals 25 minus sine of 6x. And the domain here is negative infinity to infinity. Just a little side note, this 6 in here, as I think you know, decreases the period of this function. Without the 6, if it's just sine of x, it's the same period as cosine of x. It's 2 pi. But when this is a number greater than 1, it's going to decrease the period by a factor of 6. So the period would be 2 pi over 6, which is pi over 3. As it happens, that's not really relevant, but I just wanted to make sure that that's clear to you. We can discuss that if it's not clear. Okay, and then g of x is just the integer function of x over 2. So they're going to want to find, they want you to find g of f of x, or at least that's your first task. And then we'll talk about the final part of the problem in a minute. But what I want to emphasize here is, in general, as I said, in general, the domain of g of x is negative infinity to infinity. However, when you have a combined function like this, it turns out that whatever the range of f of x is, that then becomes the domain of g of x. And so I think maybe that's already clear. If it's not, it'll become clear in a minute. So what's the range of f of x here? Well, again, I said that the period doesn't matter. It really all that matters is what's the range of sine of 6x. Well, regardless of what the period is, the range is always 1 to negative 1, right? And that means that the range of the entire function is 24 to 26. And that range, 24 and 26 and all real numbers in between, becomes the domain of the g portion of this combined function. So if we start with the minimum of that domain, and we put in g of x in this case is going to be the integer function of 24 over 2, which of course is just 12, and that equals 12. And then g of 26, I could have written 24 here, g of 26 equals integer of 26 over 2, or 13, equals 13. So for all real numbers in between 24 and 26, x over 2 is going to always be greater than 12, but less than 13. And since they're all in between 12 and 13, when you take the integer of x over 2, you always round down, so they're all going to be 12. So in other words, the result of this function is almost always 12, but the very last case, when you put in 26, you wind up with a 13, but nothing in between. Obviously, that's the point. It's an integer function, or whatever you call it, and so it spits out integers. So it's going to be 12, 12, 12, 12, 12, an infinite number of 12s, but they're all 12, so that's one element. The other element of the range is 13, and nothing in between. So when they say add the elements of the range, you're just adding those two integers. 12 plus 13 equals 25.